Oh. Buah. Tres horas para cargar, hijo de remil puta, boludo. Curia. No, no me tengo que mal. ¿Qué tal si empiezo? Pum, 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 pum. No, boludo, qué ocote.
Welcome to the wonderful world of Wilton, where anything is possible. A place where you're free to
Our interrogation was always preliminary. The most dramatic one that I had, well, he was a two-star general. Here he is in full attention in front of me. The irony of it, you know, a Jewish PFC have this two-star general standing at attention. And I asked him of his name, and he says, August Wilhelm von Hohenzollern. And I said, oh my God, because of my German schooling, I recognized him immediately who he was. He was the son of the Kaiser. So I stopped the interrogation immediately. I went to my captain. I told him, hey, we got a big one.
You are about to embark upon the great crusade
to meet this mounting aggression.
And make no mistake about it, good will prevail.
I was born in the town in the city called Breslau, which doesn't exist anymore. After World War II, it ended up being Polish, and it's now called Wrocław. We had an incident in the city of Chemnitz where my uncle was accosted by some Nazi stormtroopers, and when they understood that he was Jewish, they killed him. And that was talked about among the adults, not to me, but as a kid, you overhear what's going on and you form your own opinions. And I knew right away at that point, and I was about 6 years old, that Nazis were our enemy. We had a sporting goods store, and Nazi stormtroopers were demonstrating in front of the store with signs saying that the Jews are a disaster and don't buy from Jews. And my father understood right away that this was going to be a losing proposition, and he sold the store immediately. And from then on, our economic means took a slow dive downwards.
What were the most stressful moments on your way out of Germany and onto the U.S.?
Well, I really didn't know any stressful moments because my mother didn't tell me. She had made arrangements ahead of time, and we could make all kinds of arrangements ahead of time because we can only carry one suitcase and 10 marks. And she had booked us on a first-class passage on the Holland American line, the steamer Statendam, and we had 2 weeks of first-class hotel reservations in New York. All that was done in advance, and when we took off, we snuck out of the apartment at 5 in the morning. We got on a train to Berlin, where she said goodbye to her father, who ended up in a concentration camp, which of course she didn't know, but he was killed in the camp. And her older sister, Greta, with her family, they escaped. They had made arrangements already because their sons were already in Australia. And then she came along with the younger two children and escaped to Australia. But Australia was so far, so my mother never saw her again either. But in any event, I had a wonderful trip, and we had entered the United States on the 30th of October, 1938. On the 9th of November, just 10 days later, was Crystal Night. And now Crystal Night was a pogrom against the Jews that had been planned ahead of time, and they were just waiting for an incident to implement this plan. And the incident was some Polish Jewish kid had shot a member of the German embassy in Paris. And with that, they implemented the plan. They smashed all the windows of any stores that were still in Jewish hands. They burned all the synagogues, and they arrested every Jewish male that they could get their hands on. And then they levied a big fine on the Jewish congregation to pay for all the damage that they had caused from the Nazi side.
Now, when you were 16 years old, Japan attacks Pearl Harbor, and within a few days, we're also at war with Germany. Did you think you'd be going to war within a few years?
Well, when I was outside my apartment when somebody came running by and says, the Japs just bombed Pearl Harbor. And nobody knew what Pearl Harbor was. And then we finally found out, and the war started. And in a sense, I was pretty happy about being in the war because I knew England had a lot of trouble, but now that the United States was in there, Germany was going to get beaten. I knew that right from the start. But I also knew this wasn't going to affect me because I was only 16 years old. Well, it didn't take too long when it started to get into my brain that, this thing is not going to be a quick one, and this might as well get me into it if it lasts 2 years. And of course, the time went on, and I was able to volunteer as an air raid warden messenger. I was too young to be an air raid warden, but I was thrilled to volunteer because I wanted to help the war effort any which way I could. Anyway, as soon as I became 18, I was 18 in August, and I had taken one course, a summer course in college, and in September I was drafted. When you were drafted, you go to your reception center, which was Fort Dix, New Jersey, and you usually stay there 4 days, and then you get orders for basic training, and after that goes to advanced training. Well, I was there for 4 days, and the second day you get KP. They wake you up at 4 in the morning, and you're in the kitchen until about 8 o'clock at night. And I said to myself, well, this may be the Army, but I'm going to try to avoid this as much as possible. Well, anyway, the fourth day came, everybody got their orders except me. So I run up to my sergeant, and I said, everybody's leaving except me. Well, what's going on? He said, well, let me check. And I came back, he said, well, of course, you're an enemy alien. I said, enemy alien? I'd never had heard that term, and I certainly didn't think I was one. I said, I'm not an enemy. And he said, well, of course you are, because you came on a visitor's visa, you never got naturalized, and you were born in Germany. Your last passport was German, even though it was revoked, and you were stateless. You were designated an enemy alien, and the FBI has to investigate you. And I thought to myself, my gosh, I'm going to be here and permanent KP. And with that thought, I went back to the sergeant. I said, Sergeant, I forgot to tell you, I know a little bit about the Army. I was in high school ROTC, and I took one ROTC class in college, and I know about close order drill. I know about the tactics of the military. I know some history about the military, so I'm not a complete novice. Well, the sergeant said, I'm glad you told me that, because since you're going to be here a while, I'm going to make you an acting gadget. What's an acting gadget? He said, well, here's an armband that has corporal stripes, but don't get it into your head that you're a corporal. You're just an acting corporal. You don't get paid like a corporal, but you can act like a corporal with those new recruits that come in because you're now seasoned with 4 days in the Army. So you form them up and you march them to the 2 movies that you saw when you came in. I was relieved. I said, thank God, no KP. And sure enough, I had the first group. I got them together. I marched them to the theater, left, right, left, and it worked fine. They got the rhythm of it, and I had a march, and by the time we got to the theater, and they saw 2 movies. One was Why We Fight. It was a very good movie that showed why we were in the war. The second movie was How to Avoid Venereal Diseases. I saw that movie more time than anybody else in the United States Army. But that was a record that I didn't particularly was proud of, but I had it. Anyway, it sure as heck beat KP. The FBI finally cleared me after 3 months of investigation, and off I went for basic training in Fort Benning, Georgia. And 2 weeks after I arrived in Fort Benning, they took me to the Middle District Court of Georgia, in Columbus, Georgia, and I was sworn in as a United States citizen. Boy, was I proud of that. I patted myself on the back because there was nobody else to do that. And I went back and I was just gleeful because I now was no longer an enemy alien. I was a citizen, a United States citizen like everybody else. And I'm still proud of that to this day. And whenever I think of it, I pat myself on my back.
That's awesome. Congratulations.
Thank you.
So you were eventually assigned to the 87th Infantry Division and sent over to Europe in late 1944. In a short time later, they discovered that you spoke German, so they moved you to an interrogator role. Did you ever see combat with the 87th?
Oh, no. The 87 separated me. I wasn't one of their best soldiers because I had been involved in a training accident. The instructor
veces mueve,
gas
men, qué
training,
mogólico.
and he wanted to make it a little more vibrant, so he drew a hand grenade, which he thought was a smoke grenade. I had my gas mask on, which was very lucky, because he threw that grenade and it turned out to be white phosphorus. And that burned me around the ears, around the edge of the gas mask, on the wrists, on the hands. My back caught fire and I had to get rid of that. I was in the dispensary, the first one. I had run right in there and they didn't know what it was until the instructor came, who had gotten the blast right into his face. Just terrible. And it was white phosphorus that burns until it's soaked in water. And they put my hands into a bucket of water and applied wet compresses of the air. Anyway, I was in the hospital for a month, and they had progressed from a 5-mile full field gear march to a 25-mile one. And when I got back a month later, about 15 miles, I conked out and they had to take me in a Jeep, so I wasn't the best soldier. And they got rid of me when they were assessed infantry replacements to replace the losses of D-Day. I was one of those, and I left the 87th Infantry Division for overseas, England, France, and then into Belgium. And as you said, Belgium, they found out I spoke German. And I went to Le Bessenay near Paris for a 2-week course. There were a lot of refugee kids like me who had gone to Ritchie, Camp Ritchie, and they had a 8-week intelligence course. They had taken just some of the lessons and put it into this 2-week course. And then I was placed into a team, interrogator, prisoner of war team, number 66, IPW 66, which had 2 officers, 2 interpreters, and a sergeant in charge, and a driver. Now, the officers and the interpreters, like me, wore US, and US, no rank insignia. And I tore off my PFC stripe, and I had US, and I looked just like the officers. The driver, I outranked the driver, but he didn't know that. And I ordered him around all the time. Had he known, he wouldn't have listened to me, but he listened. Anyway, the team went to Luxembourg and married up with a T-Force 12th Army Group, which was a large intelligence unit right under General Bradley. It was General Eisenhower, then General Bradley, and then General Patton and Hodges as the Army commanders. So we were a high-level intelligence unit operating in both in the 1st and 3rd Army area. And we got back to Belgium 1 week before the Battle of the Bulge.
With the McDonald's app, you can get your favorite thing delivered to your door, so you can eat your favorite thing while you watch your favorite thing at home. Order McDelivery in the McDonald's app. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
At participating McDonald's, delivery prices may be higher than at restaurants. Delivery and other fees may apply.
And we were committed in the Battle of the Bulge to look for German infiltrators who had come through our lines in a Jeep in American uniforms. And they were causing havoc in back of our lines. And we were told to circulate through Belgium to see if we can intercept any of these teams. And we went all over Belgium, Ciney, Rochefort, Dinant, Namur, all kinds of Remouchamp, all kinds of cities, and it was just miserable because we had to circulate in a Jeep with a windshield down because you can't shoot through the windshield, and the weather was absolutely horrendous. It was either sleeting or freezing rain or snow, and the wind at 25 miles per hour with that windshield down was just brutal. Now, I was actually a PFC, which meant I was in the back seat. The captain was in front with the driver, and I got behind the captain, and he shielded me a bit. That full blast went on him, and I had a little bit less blast. It was still miserable. And we suffered for about 7 days circulating. In Dinant, we found one of the teams had been wiped out by a infantry roadblock, and they had taken a bazooka, and I guess the team didn't know the password, and they figured it was German, and they wiped it out with a bazooka. We searched those people. The 4 Germans were dead outside the Jeep, and all we found was dog tags, which meant they had taken them from either POWs or from dead Americans. And they had explosives, they had maps, but nothing of intelligence value that we could turn in except for the dog tags.
How soon did you start interrogating German POWs?
Well, the mission of the T-Force was to follow the infantry into all the big cities that they were capturing. And we had building targets and personality targets in each one of these cities. And the building targets were anything of use to the occupying force, to the United States, such as utilities and government buildings, and also in support of the prosecution of war criminals. And the personality targets were the war criminals. Anyway, we went to Cologne as the first city, and then across the Remagen Bridge when that was captured, into Düsseldorf, and then Siegen, and then we went into Frankfurt, and then Wiesbaden, and the next one was Kassel, but we bypassed Kassel because the Russians had already reached the Elbe at Magdeburg, and we went to Magdeburg to be on the other side of the Elbe. Anyway, you said the first people that we were really interrogating, it wasn't in Cologne, because in Cologne, the Nazis who were in charge of Cologne withdrew to the other side of the Rhine River. We didn't find any personality targets there. But when we started to get into Düsseldorf, there were some people that we did catch, and we started to interrogate. Now, our interrogation was always preliminary. And now, of course, if they were targets, they were going to be prosecuted. So it was just a preliminary investigation to ascertain that this was actually the target, and he had to be kept separate in confinement awaiting trial. But when we got to Frankfurt, for example, there was a large group of officers who had been captured. We were told to start interrogating those officers to separate those who have to be kept for further investigation and further interrogation versus those that would go right into the POW camp. And now the most dramatic one that I had in Frankfurt, I asked the guy, well, he was a two-star general. Here he is in full attention in front of me. The irony of it, you know, a Jewish PFC, they have this two-star general standing at attention in front of me, which I understood very nicely, but of course he didn't understand that. And I asked him of his name, and he says, August Wilhelm von Hohenzollern. And I said, oh my God, because of my German schooling, I recognized him immediately who he was. The Hohenzollern was the aristocracy, and
all right, this is August 24th, 1996. Our survivor is Helen Collin. We are in Houston, Texas, in the United States. The interviewer is Pamela Lane. The interview will be conducted in English. My name is Pamela Lane, L-A-N-E, and today we're going to be interviewing Helen Collin. The interview is in English. It's taking place in Houston, Texas, in the United States, and the date is August 24th, 1996. All right. Could you tell us your name and spell it for us, please?
Helen, H-E-L-E-N, last name C-O-L-I-N.
And what was your name at birth?
Hela, H-E-L-A-G-O-L-D-S-T-E-I-N, Goldstein.
And have you ever used any other names?
No, ma'am.
What is your date of birth?
April 15th, 1923.
And your current age?
73.
And what is the city and the country of your birth?
I was born in Lodz, L-O-D-Z, Poland, P-O-L-A-N-D, Poland.
All right, Helen, we're going to go back now to some of your earliest memories. And I'd like to talk about life in Lodz, what that was like, what you remember of it. Let's start with your family. First of all, what is your father's name?
Joseph.
And what did he do for a living?
He was a builder, and he did a lot of, he was self-employed, did a lot of things on his own, primarily in the building business.
What kind of a man was he?
My father was more like a friend to us. At any time that he had a little time, he would play with all of us. And I vividly remember one particular Sunday or Saturday that he took us on sleigh rides and up in the mountains, and we followed it. Eddie dragged the sleigh, and we 4 children followed him up the mountain, and then he would sit down first, and we would sit in the back so he can kind of hold the wind, the breeze from us, the cold. And then we came down, and we did that repeatedly, and it was so much fun. He was very, very anxious to always come to different classes to see our achievements. He was busy with the children. That was his life. He wanted to see the children grow up to be productive, intelligent, and self-reliant. That was their goal, Mother and Daddy.
What was your mother's name?
My mother's name was Miriam.
And did your mother work?
No, mother was a homemaker, and mother was my confidant, my closest friend. I didn't need anybody other than my mother. When my mother said something, it was, I didn't need anyone to okay it, because I knew it's true, and I knew it's right. And it was like God had spoken. When my mother spoke to me, or to any of the other children for that matter. She's very close with us, very close. Always managed to, in different at different times of the year, you know, at schools, different classes, because I have a sister that's older, and she would come and help us produce a play pertaining to the holiday that we're celebrating, being Hanukkah or coming up Rosh Hashanah or Yom Kippur or anything like that. She would wanted always to show the other children, the non-Jewish children, what we are celebrating. And for Passover, you know, we had to put on for every holiday we put on a play. And with the original table settings and the true ceremonial occasion. And it was fun. It was really fun. And even the non-Jewish children really enjoyed. They were very interested in it. And mother was the one that always instigated that play for every different holiday. So we produced it, I remember, in our house. Sometimes the weather permitting, we were in the backyard in the garden, and we had a little gazebo, and we played the last dress rehearsal we did in the gazebo, and mother was sitting and watching, and she still had some corrections to make, which we appreciated, you know, because she knew better than us.
Tell me about the school you went to.
I went to a co-ed school, and it was a mixture of Jewish and non-Jewish children, as I mentioned before, and boys and girls. And growing up, being that my father was in the profession he was in, we were exposed to a lot of different affairs, such as christening in a church, which we attended. We were dressed like for a great holiday, like for a party, gloves and all, no matter how young we were, and little hats, and we paraded into being a church or somewhere in the house, and we watched the christening or a wedding, not necessarily Jewish, and we were exposed to all of that. And so